Maya stood by the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. Her reflection stared back at her, looking tired and distant. 7 years of marriage had passed, and somehow the apartment felt bigger and emptier than when they first moved in. The furniture was the same, the walls were the same, but something important had disappeared. Dev would be home any minute now. She could predict it like clockwork. He would walk in around 8:30. Tired from another long day at the accounting firm, he would hang his jacket on the same hook, kick off his shoes by the door, and head straight to the bathroom. Then he would eat whatever she had kept warm for him, sitting at the kitchen table while scrolling through his phone. They might exchange a few words about paying the electricity bill or fixing the leaking tap. Then he would watch television for an hour before going to bed. This was their life now. Maya remembered when things were different. They used to talk for hours about everything and nothing. Dev would come home excited to see her, and they would cook dinner together, making a mess in the kitchen and laughing about it. They would dance in the living room to old songs, even though neither of them knew the proper steps. On rainy nights like this, they would sit by the window together, sharing tea and dreams. But somewhere between the 2nd year and the 7th, life had become about surviving instead of living. The money problem started when Dev's company cut salaries. Maya had to take up a teaching job at a local school, working with young children. It paid the bills, but it drained her energy. Her real love was painting. She used to spend hours with her brushes and colors, creating worlds on canvas. But the paints and canvases cost money they did not have, so she packed everything away in boxes and pushed them under the bed, out of sight. Dev had changed too. He became quiet and stressed. He would leave early for work and come home late, trying to take on extra projects to earn more. He stopped writing poetry like he used to. He stopped surprising her with small gifts or handwritten notes. He stopped asking about her day. They lived in the same space, but they might as well have been living in different cities. The sound of keys in the lock pulled Maya from her thoughts. The door opened, and Dev walked in, his hair wet from the rain, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. He did not look at her. He went straight to hang his jacket, following the same routine he had followed for months. But tonight, something inside Maya broke. Maybe it was the rain reminding her of better times. Maybe it was the weight of all the unspoken words piling up inside her chest. Maybe it was the fear that if she did not say something now, they would keep drifting further apart until there was nothing left to save. She turned away from the window and looked at her husband. Really looked at him. He seemed older than his 32 years. There were lines on his forehead that were not there before. His eyes, which once sparkled with joy, now looked flat and empty. He was standing just 10 feet away from her, but the distance felt like miles. Her heart started beating faster. Her hands felt cold. She wrapped her arms around herself, gathering courage. When she finally spoke, her voice came out as a whisper, soft and fragile. "Don't stand so far," she said. The words floated across the room. "Tonight feels different." Dev froze. His hand was still on the coat rack. He turned his head slowly, surprised. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time in months. His eyes searched her face, trying to understand what she meant. Maya could see confusion in his expression, mixed with something else. Was it hope? Was it fear? She was not sure. Her own emotions were tangled up inside her. Part of her wanted to take the words back, to return to the safe silence they had built around themselves. But a bigger part of her knew that silence was killing them slowly. The rain continued to fall outside. The apartment was quiet, except for the sound of water hitting the window. Dev stood there, not moving, and Maya stood by the window, waiting. This moment felt important, like standing on the edge of something. They could either step back into their separate worlds, or they could step forward into the unknown together. Maya's eyes filled with tears, but she did not look away. She had opened the door. Now she had to wait and see if Dev would walk through it. Dev felt like someone had shaken him awake from a long sleep. Maya's words echoed in his mind. When was the last time she had asked him to come closer? When was the last time he had really looked at her? not just glanced in her direction while thinking about work deadlines and unpaid bills. He let go of the coat rack and took a small step toward her. Then another. His heart was pounding. He had become so used to keeping his distance, physically and emotionally. It felt safer that way. If he did not get too close, she would not see how scared he was. She would not see that he felt like a failure because he could not give her the life she deserved. Maya, he started to say something, but the words stuck in his throat. What could he say? That he was sorry? That he missed her? Everything sounded too small for what he was feeling. Maya shook her head gently. I don't know when we stopped talking, she said. Her voice was stronger now. More steady. Not about bills or what to buy from the market, but really talking. About us. About what's happening inside our hearts. She hugged herself tighter. I miss you, Dev. You're right here in this apartment, but I miss you like you've gone far away. Those words hit Dev harder than any argument could have. He realized she was right. He had been physically present but emotionally absent. He had convinced himself that working hard and bringing money home was enough, that if he could just solve their financial problems, everything else would automatically become better. But he had been wrong. He crossed the remaining distance between them. Now he stood close enough to see the tiny lines of worry on her forehead, close enough to notice how thin she had become. Had she been eating properly? He had been too wrapped up in his own world to notice. I miss you too, he said, and his voice cracked with emotion. I thought providing for us was the most important thing. I thought if I could just fix the money situation, we would be happy again. He looked down at his hands. But I see now that I was hiding behind work. It was easier to focus on problems I could solve with effort than to face what was happening between us. Maya reached out slowly, carefully, as if she was not sure he would welcome her touch. Her fingers brushed his arm, light as a feather. That simple touch felt like electricity running through Dev's body. How long had it been since they had touched each other with tenderness? I don't need you to fix everything, Maya said softly. I just need you here. Really here. Not just your body in the room, but your mind and your heart too. I need my husband back, not just a man who pays the bills and sleeps in the same bed. Something inside Dev broke open. All the walls he had built around his heart came crashing down. He pulled Maya into his arms, and she fell against his chest. They held each other tightly, desperately, like two people who had been lost and finally found their way home. Maya's tears soaked into his shirt. His own tears fell into her hair. They stood there for a long time, just holding each other. The rain outside seemed to match their tears. Dev could feel Maya's heartbeat against his chest. Fast and strong. He realized how much he had missed this closeness. This feeling of being connected to another human being. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry for becoming a stranger. I'm sorry too, Maya said. I should have said something sooner. I should have told you how I was feeling instead of suffering silently. They pulled apart slightly. Just enough to look at each other's faces. Both of them had red eyes and wet cheeks. But there was something new in their expressions. A tiny spark of hope. Fragile but real. Can we sit and talk? Maya asked. Really talk? I don't care if we stay up all night. I just want to understand what happened to us and how we can find our way back. Dev nodded. Yes, let's talk. About everything. Video over the Aurelius's not. They made tea and sat on the living room floor, just like they used to do when they first got married. The cups grew cold as they talked, but neither of them noticed. For the first time in months, they were truly present with each other. The clock showed 2 in the morning. But neither Maya nor Dev felt sleepy. They sat facing each other on the floor, their cold teacups forgotten between them. The rain had stopped, and the city outside was quiet. Inside their small apartment, years of silence were finally being broken. Maya talked about her teaching job and how it left her feeling empty. The children were sweet, but standing in that classroom every day felt like wearing clothes that did not fit. She missed painting so much it hurt. Every time she walked past an art supply store, she would stop and look at the colors through the window, feeling a deep ache in her chest. But she had convinced herself that art was a luxury they could not afford. "I felt selfish for even thinking about it," she admitted, playing with the edge of her dupatta. "You were working so hard, taking all that stress. How could I complain about not being able to paint? It seemed so small compared to our real problems." Dev listened carefully, really listened. He noticed things he had missed before, the way her eyes lit up slightly when she talked about colors and canvas, the sadness in her voice when she mentioned the boxes under their bed. He felt ashamed that he had not seen her pain. Then it was his turn to open up. Dev talked about the constant fear that lived inside him. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of failing as a husband. Fear that one day Maya would realize she had married the wrong person. This fear had pushed him to work longer and harder, but instead of bringing them closer, it had built a wall between them. "I stopped writing poetry because I felt like a failure," he said quietly. "How could I write about love and beauty when I couldn't even pay our rent on time? Every poem felt like a lie. So, I stopped. I packed away that part of myself, just like you packed away your paints." Maya reached across and took his hand. Her touch was warm and comforting. "We both packed away the things that made us who we are," she said. "We thought we were being practical and responsible, but we were actually losing ourselves." Dev squeezed her hand. "Do you remember when we first met? At your cousin's wedding?" A small smile appeared on Maya's face. "How could I forget? You were helping your sister move the next day, and you came to the wedding straight from buying packing boxes. You had tape stuck to your kurta." Dev laughed, a real laugh that came from deep in his belly. It felt good, like using muscles he had forgotten he had. "And you pointed it out in front of everyone. I was so embarrassed. But then you made that joke about being stuck on me and everyone laughed," Maya continued, her smile growing wider. "That's when I first thought you might be someone special." They spent the next hour remembering their early days together. The long walks they took because they could not afford fancy dates. The way Dev would leave little poems on her desk at work. The small watercolor paintings Maya would hide in his bag for him to discover later. The spontaneous trip they took to the mountains with almost no money, sleeping in their car and eating cheap roadside food, but feeling like the richest people in the world because they had each other. "When did we stop being those people?" Maya asked, her voice sad. "When did we become so serious and heavy?" "I think it happened slowly," Dev replied thoughtfully. "Like sand slipping through fingers. One day we're dancing in the rain, and the next day we're worried about the electricity bill. One day we're writing each other love notes, and the next day we're too tired to talk." The conversation turned to their current situation. They talked honestly about money, about stress, about expectations and disappointments. But this time, they were talking as partners, not as two people fighting separate battles. As the first light of dawn started coming through the windows, Dev suddenly stood up. "Wait here," he said to Maya. He went to the bedroom and came back with determination on his face. "Pull out your paintings," he said. "The ones under the bed. I want to see them. Pull out your paintings. Pull out your paintings. Pull out your paintings." Maya hesitated. "Dev, they're probably covered in dust. And they're not even finished. Most of them are just ideas I started and abandoned." "I don't care," he said firmly. "I want to see what you've been hiding. I want to see the part of you that you thought you had to pack away." With shaking hands, Maya pulled the boxes from under the bed. She opened them slowly, as if opening a chest full of memories. Canvas after canvas came out. Each one, a window into her soul. There were landscapes of places she had imagined visiting. There were abstract paintings full of swirling emotions she could not express in words. There were portraits of ordinary people she had seen on the street, each face telling a story. Dev sat in silence, looking at each painting carefully. Some were bright and hopeful, others were dark and troubled. Together, they formed a diary of Maya's inner life over the past few years. The paintings she had hidden away were actually pieces of her heart. "Maya," Dev said finally, his voice full of emotion. These are beautiful. These are really, truly beautiful. He looked at her with new eyes. How could you hide this? How could you think this was not important? Maya's eyes filled with tears again, but this time, they were different tears. You really think they're good? Good? They're incredible, Dev said. You have real talent. This shouldn't be hidden under a bed. This should be out in the world where people can see it. For the first time in years, Maya felt a flutter of hope in her chest. Maybe it was not too late. Maybe she had not lost that part of herself completely. The morning sun filled their apartment with golden light. Maya and Dev were exhausted but somehow felt more awake than they had in months. Something had shifted between them during the night. The heavy silence that had filled their home was gone, replaced by possibility. Over the next few weeks, small changes started appearing in their daily life. Dev began coming home earlier, even if it meant he had to finish some work after dinner at home. He wanted to be present for the evening hours, to share meals with Maya and actually talk about their days. Maya started waking up an hour earlier to paint before going to her teaching job. She cleared a corner of their bedroom, hung a sheet to catch the light, and set up her easels and paints. The apartment started coming alive again. There were paint smudges on Maya's hands when she made breakfast. There were papers with Dev's poetry scattered on the coffee table. They started having technology-free evenings twice a week, where they would put away their phones and just be together. Sometimes they cooked together, making a mess in the kitchen like they used to. Other times they would sit and read, or talk, or simply enjoy the comfortable silence of two people who were connected again. But it was not always easy. Old habits tried to creep back in. One evening, Dev got caught up in a work deadline and came home at 10 without calling. Maya felt the old hurt rising up inside her. She wanted to close off, to retreat into silence. But instead, she talked to him about how it made her feel. Dev apologized sincerely and promised to communicate better. The next time he had to work late, he called her twice to update her and came home with her favorite street food as a peace offering. There were also nights when Maya would look at her paintings and feel overwhelmed by doubt. What was the point? Who would want to see her work? Maybe she was just wasting time that could be spent earning more money or doing something practical. In those moments, Dev would sit with her and remind her why her art mattered. He would read her favorite poems or show her the painting he loved most, the one of a bird flying toward the sun. They talked about their dreams again, but this time, they made actual plans. Maya started researching local art galleries and community exhibitions. Dev joined a poetry group that met every other weekend at a nearby cafe. They were not just dreaming anymore. They were taking small, concrete steps toward the life they wanted. One Saturday afternoon, Dev surprised Maya. "Get dressed," he said, with a mysterious smile. "We're going out." "Where?" Maya asked, curious. "You'll see." He took her to a community center where salsa dance classes were being held. Maya looked at him in surprise. "Dance classes? Really? Why not?" Dev said, grinning. "We used to dance all the time. Remember? Let's learn something new together." They were terrible at salsa. They kept stepping on each other's toes and going in the wrong direction. The instructor had to correct them repeatedly. But they laughed so hard, their stomachs hurt. Watching other couples glide smoothly across the floor while they stumbled around like baby deer was somehow hilarious. By the end of the class, they had barely learned the basic step. But they had remembered something important. Joy did not have to be perfect to be real. Maya also started taking brave steps with her art. She took photos of her paintings and created a simple online portfolio. She sent emails to small galleries, her hand shaking as she pressed send. Most did not reply. Some sent polite rejections. But one small gallery owner wrote back saying she would like to see the paintings in person. The day Maya carried her paintings to that gallery, Dev took the day off from work to go with her. The gallery owner, a kind woman named Zainab, looked at each painting carefully. She asked questions about Maya's process and inspiration. At the end, she said she would like to include 3 paintings in an upcoming group exhibition for local artists. Maya could not believe it. She looked at Dev, and he was beaming with pride. On the walk home, she kept asking, "Did that really happen? Am I dreaming?" "It's real," Dev assured her, squeezing her hand. "Your talent is getting the recognition it deserves, but success in one area highlighted struggles in another." Dev received news that his company was offering a promotion. It came with a significant salary increase, which they desperately needed, but it also meant longer hours and more stress. The old Dev would have accepted immediately without discussion. But now he sat with Maya and talked about it. "What do you think?" he asked her. "What do you think?" Maya replied. "It's your job. It affects both of us," Dev said. "We're a team. We decide together." After much discussion, Dev decided to decline the promotion. Instead, he negotiated with his manager for flexible working hours. He could come in early and leave early, or work from home 2 days a week. The salary would stay the same, but he would have more control over his time. Their financial situation did not magically improve. They still had to watch their spending carefully. But somehow, the money stress felt less crushing because they were facing it together. They found creative ways to save money. They started cooking more at home. They discovered free events in the city, like outdoor concerts and art walks. They learned that happiness did not come from having more, but from appreciating what they had. 6 months had passed since that rainy night when Maya whispered those words that changed everything. Now they stood together in a small art gallery on a Friday evening. The walls were white and clean, and 3 of Maya's paintings hung there, properly framed and lit with warm lights. The opening reception had brought about 30 people, a mix of friends, neighbors, art lovers, and curious visitors. Maya felt nervous and excited at the same time. She wore a simple but elegant kurta that Dev had gifted her for this occasion. He stood beside her, his hand holding hers tightly. Every time someone stopped to look at her paintings, Maya's heart would beat faster. Every time someone asked about her work, Dev would encourage her to talk about her process and inspiration. 2 of the 3 paintings sold that evening. Not for huge amounts, but enough to matter. Enough to feel like a validation of all the years she had spent with a brush in her hand. Enough to prove that her art had value beyond just personal satisfaction. One buyer was a young couple who said Maya's landscape painting reminded them of their hometown. The other was an older gentleman who bought the abstract piece, saying it captured the complexity of human emotions beautifully. When the last guest left and the gallery owner said goodnight, Maya and Dev found themselves alone in the space. The third painting, the one that had not sold, hung on the far wall. It showed a bird breaking free from a cage, flying toward an open sky. Maya walked over to look at it. "I'm glad this one didn't sell," she said softly. "I think I want to keep it." Dev came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "It's my favorite," he admitted. "It reminds me of us, breaking free from the cage we built around ourselves." Maya leaned back against him, feeling safe and content. "Do you remember what I said that night?" she asked. "During the rain?" "Of course I remember," Dev said. "You said, 'Don't stand so far. Tonight feels different.'" "Was I right?" Maya asked. "Was that night different?" Dev turned her around gently so they were facing each other. He looked into her eyes with all the love he had been too afraid or too tired to show for so long. "That night changed everything," he said. "It was the night we decided to stop giving up on each other, the night we chose to fight for us." Maya smiled, reaching up to touch his face. "Every day feels different now," she said, "because we're not living separate lives anymore. We're actually together." They stayed in the gallery a bit longer, swaying gently to no music, just enjoying the moment. Through the large windows, Maya could see it was starting to rain again. The streetlights reflected in the puddles, creating patterns of light and shadow. Rain had witnessed the beginning of their journey back to each other, and now it was here for this celebration too. When they finally left the gallery, the rain was falling steadily. They did not rush to find shelter. Instead, they walked slowly, hand in hand, letting the rain fall on them. Maya laughed as water dripped from her hair. Dev pulled her close and kissed her forehead, not caring that they were getting soaked. Their apartment welcomed them back like an old friend. The lights were warm. Maya's paintings covered the walls where there used to be empty spaces. Dev's poetry was pinned to the refrigerator. The corner of the bedroom that Maya had turned into a studio was messy with paints and brushes. The living room had books scattered around from their reading sessions. The kitchen had spices and ingredients for trying new recipes together. Every corner of the space told the story of two people who were actively living life, not just surviving it. That night, as they got ready for bed, Maya looked at Dev and felt overwhelming gratitude. Not because everything was perfect. Their problems had not disappeared. Money was still tight. Work was still stressful. Life was still full of challenges, but they were facing everything together now, and that made all the difference. "Thank you," Maya whispered as they lay in bed. "For what?" Dev asked, pulling her close. "For hearing me that night. For not walking away. For choosing to come closer instead of staying far." Dev kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for speaking up. For having the courage to break the silence. You saved us, Maya. We saved each other." She corrected him. They fell asleep, wrapped around each other, not on separate sides of the bed like they used to. Outside, the rain continued its gentle song. Inside, two hearts beat in rhythm, connected and content. They had learned that marriage was not about never having problems or never growing apart. It was about recognizing when distance was growing and having the courage to close that distance. It was about speaking up when silence became too heavy. It was about choosing each other, again and again, even when it was hard. The next morning would bring new challenges. There would be bills to pay, work stress to manage, dreams to chase, and obstacles to overcome. But Maya and Dev would face it all as true partners, because they had learned the most important lesson. That home was not just a place. Home was wherever they stood together, close enough to hear each other's heartbeat, brave enough to be vulnerable, and committed enough to keep choosing love.